Burn my damn finger.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
You remember when you was only 2 years old?
No,
You came into my life.
I don't.
Okay, who left the toilet running?
Whoa,
And many
man.
more.
Hallelujah.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's me, your boy, Podcast Peaks, once again, here on Podcast Make It Make Sense, where I'm going to talk about anything and everything from the perspective of a man who has 4 kids, who's seen it all, done most of it, and probably forgot half of it. So here we are. This is the recap episode. This episode is going to be a little bit shorter than usual, and I'm doing something totally different than I normally do before. I am recording this episode 100% in my home, which is not abnormal, but this time I'm doing it while my kids are here. So chances are I will be interrupted. Someone's going to ask me a stupid question. I'm going to be distracted. I'm going to yell. So that you guys know that this podcast is not made up. I am not making this shit up. These kids are in my behind 24/7. But let's get into it. So this is the recap episode. And on this episode, we're just going to quickly go through where we have come from, where we are at, and definitely where we are going with this podcast. I am very happy with what I've done so far. And I'm going to continue to push it as long as I can, as far as I can. So as long as I got something to say, God willing, I'm going to be on this podcast talking my shit and saying exactly what's happening. So let's start from the very beginning. For those of you who are new and have not been here before, let me go ahead and break it down for you here at Podcast Make It Make Sense. We're just going to talk about a little bit of everything. We're going to have some fun. We're going to have some serious time, some tough talk, and we're just going to get through this. And a lot of this is going to be 100% my opinion, but on the rare occasion, I will have professionals on here with me to give insight onto any topic that we're talking about that they may have their profession in. So, as I said in the very, 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 very beginning, I'm asking you guys just to give me 5 solid episodes. And so far, I've given you 5 solid episodes. If after 5 episodes you found that you enjoy what I had to say, or you found some of this funny or interesting, or any part of this resonated with you, then I ask that you like, subscribe, follow, share, all those fun things that they say to do out there in the social media world. So that way we are making this audience grow much, much more than it already has began to grow on its own. And so, with that said, we went through a couple episodes. Episode 1 was a very, not too deep, but just kind of, insight and look into what we had going on here, and it was talking about why we're here. And we dabbled on some deeper sides of the whole question of why are we here. But more important, we levied the whole concept of why are you listening to this damn podcast? Because let's be honest, you could be listening to something else, but you're going to listen to this podcast because it's 100% worth to listen. Speaking of listening, if you find yourself interested in listening to this podcast, you can officially find me on Google Podcasts. You can find me here on Podbean. You can find me on Spotify now. You can also find me on my Amazon Music Audible, and you can also find me on iHeartRadio. I am currently working to get on Pandora and TuneIn plus Alexa. Apple Podcasts, I'm going to be honest with you. If you don't know me, I'm going to tell you now, I am not a huge Apple product fan. Like, I don't like iPhones. I'm not a huge iPhone fan. Love their computers, love their Macs for sure. But I'm not an iPhone fan. Therefore, I'm not like a whole Apple head. So I'm be honest with you, the way the Apple Podcast is working is getting the account set up and verifying my identity. Yeah, they're doing too much and not enough all at the same time. So unless Apple figures out an easier way to make people or allow people to put their podcasts on their podcast stations and their podcast library, I might not end up on Apple Podcasts anytime soon. But you can definitely find me on Spotify. You can find me on Amazon Music. You can find me on iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and once again here on Podbean app. So, from there, let's fast forward or rewind, I should say, back to the beginning. So again, we started off with the why are we here? And, I just want to be able to talk my talk, walk my walk, and have somebody listen and be like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Or go, what the hell is he talking about? Either way works for me because, again, this is my opinion. I am entitled to it. And I've learned over the last few weeks, people have forgotten that opinions are people's opinions and not like the ultimate truth. I mean, I hate to say it, but people become way too sensitive about opinions. I remember when there was a time when saying we would say, well, everybody's got an opinion. Everyone, opinions are like buttholes. Everybody got them, right? And now it's like, oh fudge, like you can't even have an opinion without hurting somebody's feelings, which is really, really weird to me. Because it's like, yeah, it's how I think, and I don't see how what I'm saying about how I feel or how I think about things uh, affects you that much. But apparently, that's the new norm where people's opinions ultimately affect everything that we have to do in life, and it's I don't know, it's too much. And I don't want to get sidetracked by that and start rambling on about opinions because I'll turn this into an episode when it's really just a recap. Um, but for sure, we'll dive deeper into that in the near future. So get your opinions ready because you're going to have them about what the shit I got to say. And I'm here for it. I'm here for the nonsense. So, anyway, back to the recap. As I said in the recap, so episode 1, I was just trying to get you guys to understand what I'm here to do. Have some fun with it. We know we dived a little bit into the why are we here. But, fast forward through that, we talked about the versus reaction or my reaction to the verses. At the time that this podcast started, it was the Locks versus Dipset. And then, my God, was it not fair because Jadakiss alone handled that whole entire situation. So if you didn't see it, I strongly encourage you to go out there and watch Versus TV. You can find it on the Apple Store, you can find it on IG, and you should be able to go back and watch all those all the versus episodes that I've already played and just get caught up on that. And then, of course, I gave you guys a recap of my trip to Martha's Vineyard, which was freaking awesome. I will say this. I was moderately surprised on how Martha's Vineyard was set up. I thought it was like the land of the rich white people. And here I am, a middle-class black guy from the hood, and I was kicking it in Martha's Vineyard. And that shit was dope. And I really didn't feel out of place until I went and sat by the pool and 2 Barca Lounger chairs over was Barack Obama's oldest daughter. I'm like, oh, fuck. Now it's awkward. But again, that was episode 1 where we talked about all those fun things. Moving into episode 2, up next we talked about how I was looking for guests, which I still am looking for guests to be on my podcast and to join me. And thankfully enough, I have 3 lovely ladies signed up or lined up to join me on my podcast. We have an up and coming comedian, stand-up comedian. She'll be joining us. We have an entrepreneur who will be coming in and talking about her job or her business and what she has going on and how this post-pandemic lifestyle has, greatly influenced entrepreneurs and how it's impacted them both negatively and positively. And then last but not least, we have a wonderful woman who I've had the pleasure of engaging in dialect with before, joining us to talk on different levels of what it's like to be a stepmother, which is apparently a hot topic, a foundational Black American, and also, just believe a woman who's advocating for fathers' rights, which apparently a lot of women don't like to hear about what the rights fathers have, which works perfectly for my podcast just for the simple fact that I am a father. So hearing from a woman, her thoughts and feelings on what they want to say or what she has to say about father's rights is going to be extremely exciting. So I have those 3 lovely ladies lined up. But we were blessed enough and fortunate enough that in that first episode, episode 2, where we talked about getting guests on the show, I was blessed enough to have a guest join me shortly after that on to my next episode. But in episode 2, we talked about getting guests on the show. We also talked about OnlyFans and what OnlyFans really was about and how they were trying to shut it down and they were trying to take away the pornographic aspect of it and how a lot of what they call them sex workers, were being impacted by this. And I'm like, shit, I'm just trying to find the site that I could be on and sell ashy knuckle pictures to women because out here, women making money off of feet and shit. And I'm over here struggling to get by, and I'm over here with 5-6 jobs trying to get by. So I'm trying to find my way to the OnlyFans that where you can sell pictures of ashy knuckles from men. Ladies, when y'all find it, or if y'all know that website, or if you're hip to that website, please drop it in my inbox. Hit me up. I strongly would appreciate that. So let me know what's happening. Then of course we talked about my first experience at a gun bash, which was, I will call it a baby Trump rally, because that shit was crazy. A lot of blue lives matter in that bitch, and I was just like, this is awkward. But guess what? God damn it, I'm going back. And because it was a learning experience, and I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't give a shit how dark my skin is and how white your skin is. God damn it, I'm entitled to the same fucking freedoms that you're entitled to. So I don't care how white or how right you think you might be. I'm going to do exactly what I want. And I'm going to join you guys at the gun bash. I heard a door open. I think one of my kids was checking to see who the hell I was down here talking to. So we lucked up. They haven't actually popped down here yet and start bothering me. But once my daughter finishes eating her fruit and realizes that I'm nowhere upstairs, she'll show up. All right. So then episode 3, we had our first guest, my friend, Holistically Dom from Chi-Town. She is a therapist, and she was here to talk with us about trauma and drama and how they relate and how they impact a lot of relationships and how a lot of people are duly affected by these things. And we don't really take the time, especially amongst the African American community, to actually stop and address the trauma that we've endured and how it creates the drama which we constantly find ourselves in. Then we talked really quickly about the fathered versus the fatherless, the perspective of men and the relationships they have with those around them when they come from homes where they were raised by a father, and when they come from homes when they were not raised by a father. So we dove into that. Me, fortunately enough, I came from a home where, though my parents were divorced early on, and not early on, but though my parents did divorce at some point in my childhood. I just broke my damn stool. Hold on. Shit. I just broke my damn stool. I'm sitting here trying to get my feet comfortable, and I push down on this on the low leg. There's a wooden stool. Shit, snap. I just broke this shit. Damn it. Well, I won't be sitting in this chair much longer before I just fall and bust my ass, but whatever the case may be. Anyway, so what we have here is what was that? Oh, fathers versus fathers. So yeah, I was fortunate enough to be in a household where though my parents were divorced when I was younger, I still had my father in my life, and he was a very integral part of my life. So I was able to speak from the fathered side of things, and then I was able to let Holistically Dom speak from the sides of what it's like to date someone who was fathered versus someone who was fatherless. So a very interesting conversation that we had. And last but not least, in that episode, we talked about ninja shit. Not actual ninjas, but the things that Black people do that we just have to stop and look like. This is the reason why we are still fighting for equality and fighting for recognition, and still saying things like Black Lives Matter. In that episode, we talked about a young man who decided to take the noose, or I don't know if the noose is the actual word for the knot itself, or just the actual tying of a rope into a circle shape with the intention of hanging somebody with it. But either way it goes, there was a young brother who decided to take that design and that actual look and style of rope and turned it into fashionable ties. And I'm gonna tell you right now, there's no way on this earth I'm ever gonna put a fucking tie around my neck that looks like a noose. No, what you just trying to capitalize on the ignorance of people, and those are the people who actually want to see us hang. So, no, brother, I appreciate you and your candor and trying to be an entrepreneur out here in the world to make things happen, but that is a big fucking no for me. So, moving on. Episode 4, we talked about, am I trending yet? Who raised you? And this is abnormal. And in these episodes, we talked about people's desire to trend, like so bad, like the things people are doing, just going all out to just be a trending thing. And it's like, yeah, you can do something that's trendy and you can start a trend, but it's always about what's next. What are you going to do next after that? You hit your stride and you get a couple thousand, a couple million likes and follows, but then it's like you got to keep going. So if you're not in this life to be famous per se, that whole am I trending yet, fad that's going around is kids are so quick to make TikToks and all these different things, and it's like no one gives a shit of you imitating something somebody else did, but for so long. Like, I can only watch so many videos of someone doing a trend before I'm like, I'm fucking over it. So, and you figure if I start the trend, right? Let's say I start it, I get 1 million views. If you do the exact same thing I did, you probably won't get 1 million views because 1 million people have already seen it. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. You always got to one up the person who started the trend. So then it just becomes a vicious cycle. And then we talked about who raised you, which tied into who's, am I trending yet? When we were discussing these TikTok challenges that were going around encouraging kids to do all these damaging and violent and vandalistic things. I don't know if there's not even a fucking word. Vandalistic is a word, but they're doing all these things, vandalizing schools and hitting teachers and shit like that, just for TikTok's sake. So I beg the question, who the hell raised these kids? Like, who raised them? And then more importantly, who raised their parents to make it okay to raise kids to think it's okay to do the shit they do? I don't know. I'm almost positive my kids are trying to open up the door and figure out what I'm doing down here, but they know better. But at the same time, my daughter don't give a shit. She'll eventually show up, I'm sure. But again, we talked about who raised you. And then the last but not least, in episode 4, we dived into the conversation, or the topic of this is abnormal. And what I mean by this is abnormal, the life we are currently living, the life that we're all experiencing, this post-pandemic, pre-pandemic, I don't even know the fucking word for current, so just pandemic lifestyle. It's not normal. And unfortunately, we're still looking for normal in something that is abnormal. And it's hard. And a lot of people are suffering in this. Like, I've never seen such a need for counseling at such a higher rate than I've ever seen in my life. Like, people need therapy. And it's not because, going to therapy is for crazy. No, we all need therapy because we need to talk to somebody, because it's hard to talk to somebody and vent to a person who's going through the exact same shit you're going through and doesn't know how to handle it themselves. So, though therapists are going through the same things that we're going through, I feel like they're better equipped to help us navigate this, because that's their job. Their job is to help people navigate abnormal circumstances and ways of living. But again, I myself can say that I advocate for people to take care of their mental health. Something that I just recently learned about, in the last couple of years myself. I'm still trying to get a handle on mental health myself. So we talked about that. So we talked about how this is abnormal, and we want to make sure that people are. I know I want to make sure that people out there are taking care of themselves and doing what they need to do to get themselves together. So not a matter of go get therapy or go get help, but make sure you guys are taking care of yourselves, because again, this is not normal. This is not normal lifestyle. We are not living in a normal world. Not a single person alive now lived through a plague. Or I'm sorry, I said plague because I saw somebody type that in the chat room. But no, again, I was antisocial before the plague. Yeah, exactly. Before this whole pandemic thing set in, we were all in our own little spaces. But now it's a whole new adaptation, because for those who were antisocial before being locked away and staying away from people was like their thing, now people who are antisocial can't even claim antisocial for themselves anymore. It's like we're all fucking antisocial. It's a mandate. We all have to stay away from each other. So now antisocial is no longer just like the thing that you do on the side because that's how you've always been. It's like now it's like, shit, I can't even be alone by my damn self. Everybody alone. I used to take pride in not going out. Now can't nobody fucking go out. So everybody's calling me while they inside like I wanted to be inside. Shit. Now I can't just be by myself with myself. Everybody by themselves. So, it's just not it's abnormal for all of us. Even if you were antisocial before coronavirus, now everybody want to be antisocial, and it's like, shit, I can't do this no more. You got the extroverts becoming introverts, and introverts is like, fuck it, I'm going outside. I can't stay inside with you people no more. This shit's ridiculous. So, again, this is abnormal. Everything's been, turned topsy turvy. Because again, I'll be honest with you, in the beginning of this whole thing, people was running out grabbing Lysol and hand sanitizer, and I'm like, you telling me that the whole goddamn world shut down because motherfuckers stopped washing their hands? That's hard to believe. But even still, what? Y'all some nasty mother suckers out there. And the antisocials is inside like, it wasn't us. We wasn't shaking hands. We was at home minding our damn business. It was you extroverts out there shaking hands and getting drunk in a club and kissing strangers. It was you guys. You asked me to come out. You know why I didn't come out? Because y'all were beginnings of a plague. Y'all were the epicenter. So yeah, I want you guys to know it's definitely not a normal situation. This is abnormal. So again, in episode 4, we talked about that. And last but not least, episode 5, right before this recap took place, we talked about dad tales, where I actually got into the dad part of my lifestyle and the dad part of my show, where I told you guys some of the stories about what it's been like for me as a father raising my kids, some good times and some bad times. I told you guys about the quote unquote the Morador diaper that I had to deal with from my oldest son when he had to take a laxative. It was crazy, dealing with my sons and my other sons and my daughter growing up, and just dealing with them, the gross things that I did for my daughter that I didn't do for my sons, like the whole instead of using that little blue Q-tip weird thing that almost all of us had shoved up our nose as kids to suck out the snot and boogers, that I did with 3 out of 4 children. For some strange reason, with my daughter, I was like, you know what, screw this thing. I grabbed her little head and I blew up into her nose, and all the snot came shooting out of the other nostril, which cleared her out really well. But it was like near my face. So like sometimes snot hit my cheek and I'm like, oh, this is fucking gross, but my baby can breathe. This shit that I did for my kids was ridiculous. So again, I am still learning, still going. And then finally, my daughter, who is going to be 4 next month, she's snotty right now. She's got a little bit of a cold now, and every time I come near her to wipe her nose, she's like, "Don't blow my nose." I'm like, "I won't blow your nose, baby," but I have to say there's a sick satisfaction in blowing her nose and the way that I did it, because then that way I know it's completely cleared out. But I'm like, whatever, because you know what? It's funny to say that as a parent, I've raised 4 kids. I have, my oldest, and I have three after him. My oldest is about to be a legal adult. But it's funny, even after 4 kids, I can tell you now, I still don't know the proper way to teach a kid how to blow their nose or like hawk up a loogie when they got phlegm in their chest. Like, that's the hardest shit to try to teach somebody. Like, you can't, like, you just say blow the nose, like blow harder, and they just go, they go, they blow with their lips. It's like, no, blow with your nose. God damn it. And then when you got, you hear your baby coughing, like, you can hear that loogie, and you want to spit it out for them, but you can't spit it out for them because you can't teach how to hawk up a loogie. This shit is just crazy. So I don't know what to tell you, but it's definitely it's definitely fun being a parent. Being a parent is the funnest shit that I've ever done. It's the one job that I'm actually really, really good at. So I'm glad to be a father of 4 and being able to share these stories with you guys. So, and then we also talked about the difference between parenting and versus parenthood. Just as a real quick, segue into that, just, people don't know that there is a difference. Parenthood is when you actually help to make a baby, meaning you and somebody lay down in the bed and somebody's stroke count was off, or you tried to get away and she wrapped them legs around you and it was too late and it was over for you from there. And you was just like, fuck it, you're just going to let go. And, let what happens. That's parenthood. And then parenting is the actual act of raising a child and putting in the effort and the work and the responsibility and the hours to make sure that child grows to be a functional adult. So parenthood versus parenting, very big difference. And because that seems to be a thing where people tend to miss out on, we wanted to make sure we touched on that because, again, parenthood, cool, but parenting is the real work. And we want to make sure that we are recognizing those out there who are parenting and not just out here just experiencing parenthood. Because my oldest son is my stepson, and I've had him for many, many years. Obviously, if he's about to be 18, I've had him forever. But I know that my experience started with parenting before I had parenthood. So it was a fantastic experience, and I'm blessed to have experienced that. And then last but not least, in episode 5, we talked about, I'm not telling you how to raise your kids, but hear me out. Some of y'all need some lessons. Some of y'all need to hear this shit. So I'm going to just keep it real with y'all. There are some people out there who just need to really, really dig deep and listen to what it means to be an actual parent. Not just out here, popping out babies and, laying with whoever's willing to lay with you. That's not how this is going to go down. So we talked about those things. So that's your recap for Make It Make Sense, the podcast. Episodes 1 through 5. Episode 0, obviously, was my introductory and my pitch to get you guys on my side. But I thank you all for listening to this recap. Again, we just wanted to run down these things that we've talked about so far so that you have an understanding what this podcast is about without actually having to go back and listen to all 5 episodes. But now that you heard the recap, strongly suggest you go back and listen to all 5 episodes so that you get your feel. But we want to tell you right now what's coming up next. So what's coming up next and what's moving forward, we're going to start a little pattern of sorts. So the pattern will follow similar to the first 5 episodes. First episode, we're going to get into some deeper questions and some deeper thought. We're going to try to do some probing and talk about things that are, a little bit more thought-provoking, questions of, what's going on in the world and, answers of the universe type of deal. And then, of course, the follow-up episode, we're going to have a little bit more fun, a little bit more comedy in that second episode. Third episode, once again, we want to try to tap on something that's important and focuses on, creating a better person, creating a whole person, dealing with the things that we're dealing with in life. Episode 4, we're going to touch on, or not episode 4, but the episode after that, we're going to touch on social media. We're going to touch on things that are going on in today's, internet world and what people are talking about, what they're not talking about, what they are afraid to say and what they're not afraid to say. So we're going to touch on social media. And last but not least, the 5th episode, or every 5th episode, we're going to get some dad tales. So we're going to talk about some parenting stuff. We're going to talk about some fun things with family and just try to keep it a roundabout situation. So we're going to try to follow this pattern and see how it works out for us. And then, of course, every episode after the dad episode will probably be a recap, or maybe we'll just jump right back into the routine of things, depending upon how I feel. So with that being said, in the meantime, in between time, I want to thank you guys for being here on Make It Make Sense with me, your boy, Podcast Peaks. We're going to keep this party going. And again, I don't want to dismiss and miss anybody, but I want to make sure you guys remember to like, share, follow, subscribe, all those fun things. You can find me on podcasts with Google. You can find me on Podbean here. You can find me on Spotify, Amazon Music, and you can find me on iHeartRadio. Because once again, I want to make sure that you guys can reach me where I am being reached at. So thank you once again for listening to another episode of Podcast Speaks. Tune in for the next episode. We're gonna get some people on here. We're gonna talk about some things. We're gonna have some fun. So I will see you guys on the next time. I'm out. You guys have a wonderful evening. Thank you for listening. Burn my damn finger.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
You remember when you was only 2 years old?
No,
You came into my life.
I don't.
Okay, who left the toilet running?
Whoa!
And many more.